This video is brought to you by patreon.com/worsttake. Get access to exclusive live streams and Discord servers, on-screen shoutouts, and early access to some videos when you join now. Help make sure that we can continue to make content like this by supporting the Patreon. Links are in the description down below. It's been a while since I've had Jake Burns on here. Jake, nice to have you on here. Your background looks a little different too, so shout out to that.
They shifted me down in the basement. Our second born got my old office. I officially got vetoed at the family council, so I'm down in the basement, which means I'm subject, as you heard on my pod earlier, to like some dogs barking every now and again. Like I'm fighting a good fight, but you got to do what you got to do for the family, kind of thing here. So.
Yeah, it kind of just is what it is. But nonetheless, glad to have you on here. We're just gonna go through the topics that we have not hit on since the draft about the Browns. One of those things that I've been thinking about, because I've really just have not been able to not think about that DTR pick and why it's so weird. Because another thing that I thought about was like they tried really hard to keep Kellen Mond on the roster last year.
Yeah,
like they above and beyond. Like, correct me if I'm wrong. They did pick him up off waivers. They didn't just wait till he cleared.
Yeah, they kept his current rookie deal. That's true.
And then they wanted to keep that deal so much that they kept him inactive all season instead of like trying to get him to the practice squad. And even to the point where they got rid of the current backup, Josh Dobbs, to keep him. Right, that's how Josh Dobbs ends up in Tennessee. When DeShaun enters the active roster, Josh Dobbs was the odd man out. So you do all of that because obviously you must like Kellen Mond, and then you get to the fifth round and you draft DTR. I'm like, so what are we going to do with Kellen Mond? Like, what did we do all of this stuff for with him last year? If he wasn't the developmental or at least like the experimental guy, and I'm curious, like, what are your thoughts on that whole, like, what do you think the plan is with them? Or was this just I like him, take him kind of situation?
From what I was told there, and this was from somebody who worked with the organization and is no longer with them in terms of, I think he was background analytics department stuff. They have this system for grading quarterbacks, and they had him as a higher graded quarterback. So they wanted to bring him in and give him a chance to see what the worth is, see if their pre-draft assumption of him was right or wrong. So,
and we're talking about DTR, right?
No, we're actually talking about Kellen Mond.
Kellen Mond, okay, Kellen Mond.
Yeah, so that's why they brought him in, surprised everybody, and brought him in and kept him around. That's a pretty rare thing to keep a quarterback, keep any player, and not give them one active situation all season. So, they do like him, the person, a lot. I think that they saw that route for him as if we don't get this player, we can do that, right? He was always, to me, the fallback as I've gotten further removed from being like you, where you're saying all the things I was saying, like, why did they pick him? Like, why did they pick DTR if they have these guys? I think that they said that Kellen Mond is the baseline player for a backup that we can live with, not love, but live with. And they evaluated it, saw him go through the process. They said, we need more, we need better. We got a cheap opportunity here to bring back, to bring back Kellen Mond, bring back Josh Dobbs. We'll do that. And then we won't force any selection of this guy that we've fallen in love with. It's clear that their scouts have been working on Thompson Robinson out at UCLA for a long time. Like, if you listen to what they said about him, they've been tracking him since he was a sophomore. Like, they've really been interested in him. And I think that they were doing that back when Baker Mayfield was a quarterback and looking at different answers and doing whatever they could to stay out in front. And they fell in love with him, the person, the player, all of it. And I think they took him with the theory in mind that he is the prototypical long-term backup at a baseline, long-term backup for Watson. We know we can now, with the new rules, get him as a third quarterback and won't have to worry about losing him, right? Even if we don't think he's quite ready to be Josh Dobbs quite yet, we think in the future he can. Now, would I be surprised if we go through preseason and training camp and they just say, yeah, he's our second guy, we're just going to keep him as our second guy? No, I wouldn't be surprised at that. But I think that that's the baseline. And they think down the line he has a chance to be a starter in the NFL, whether that's traded or whether, again, they're hedging their bets with DeShaun, for good or bad there, whether you want to hear that or not, whether they're hedging bets there. I think they're trying to give themselves as many answers at quarterback as conceivably possible within the right realm of a selection. So I don't, I'm not in love with it. I would have preferred, I think that like my preference is taking a some sort of, at that time, there were some safeties on the board I like that you could take a dart throw at because, those guys panning out means more. But I think at the end of the day here, they're trying to, like I said, hedge as many bets at quarterback as possible, give themselves as many answers as they can. When the Eagles drafted Jalen Hurts, they didn't like Carson Wentz was the guy, like he was the dude. But who knows if DeShaun doesn't play well again, and you start to get into some uncomfortable territory the third or fourth season, you probably want to have some sort of guy in house who maybe is learning and adapting and getting used to the system and could play. I just think that they're trying to have as many answers as they can. The baseline here is this guy's the long-term backup with starter upside that they can maybe trade and get something back for him. But that's kind of where I'm at with it, man. I don't know if that's the right answer, but that's kind of how I feel that they've gone about it.
All right, who do you think's will be better in the fourth quarter of these preseason games? Josh Rosen from last year or Kellen Mond?
I think Josh Rosen from last year. I think Kellen Mond is a disaster. I think I think I understand why they did it. The cheap end of the rookie deal, not much money to pay him. He could get like a good practice squad arm. He could do the running quarterback stuff. Like I get why they did it, taking like reeling him in and looking at him, but I can never get the Zimmer quote out of my head. Do you know what I'm talking about? Where
that was the Zimmer quote.
They had Mike Zimmer up on the box talking about quarterback situation. They're like, at the end of the year, 2 years ago, the Vikings were out of the playoff situation. They're like, what do you think about giving Kellen Mond a shot, giving him a look? He said, I look at him every day in practice. I'm not doing it. And I was like, oh my God, he just buried this dude so quickly. So like, they didn't like him. They got rid of him. They didn't want anything to do with him from one staff to the next. So I think that Rosen wasn't very good last year, but I think we got some chance for some historic Kellen Mond. What on earth was that type of throws?
Well, Kellen Mond is of a lineage that I think people forget is there is a class of quarterback in college football that goes up a ranking because people don't respect who coached you in college, right?
Yes. Yes.
Jimbo Fisher is like definitely on the list of guys in the NFL where they're like, well, we don't think Jimbo could fit. We don't think Jimbo could coach that well, so we're going to draft this quarterback in the third round because we think there's some upside there, right? And you see this a lot with the Urban Meyer guys too, where they'll go late. And then teams will take them at a discount and thinking that, they can get more out of them. But it's even like the Urban Meyer system guys, like Dak Prescott, he was Dan Mullen, right? Out of Mississippi State. So it's always interesting when you see one of those things where it's like, oh, these coaches don't respect each other and they think that they can fix it when everybody's tried to fix it. And it just hasn't worked. Which makes Anthony Richardson very interesting because I genuinely don't know which way that's going to go.
I don't either, but I'm tantalized. I'll tell you, I had a lot of conversations about that. Like, what would you do? Like what would you do with that? Would you have gone that route? And I like, if you were in that situation with the Colts or whoever, would you have gone that route? And I got to be honest, I would have been really tantalized into making that decision to go that direction too. Like the tools and stuff, and your run game could be good enough to give him a chance to grow. Like I'm very in on the potential of Rich. I don't know where you are with him, but I was very in, and I would have been very in if my team was in that range.
Well, I'm starting to move to the direction of what we think makes somebody pro ready and quote unquote pro ready at quarterback. I don't think is actually it's the things that make us feel like they can play quarterback in the pros. It's the things that most emulate in college football, what we feel like translate to the NFL. But time and time again, like these guys who have been project guys have gotten on the ground, played better earlier than some of the guys who were pro ready, right? You could go back to 2018, Josh Allen, certainly playing more consistently. Lamar Jackson, certainly playing more consistently before anybody in that draft. And then you go to 2017, Pat Mahomes was the project guy in that draft. And it's funny where people are like, well, he needed the year off. I'm like, what proof? What proof do we have of
Most
that?
of the time we're clueless. Yeah, we're just clueless about these guys, man. People act like there's some rigid constraint of like thought that makes a guy work or not work. And it's not the case, man.
And I just tend to think maybe what makes somebody pro ready is having wild athletic ability. Like maybe that is something that makes somebody more pro ready, because Lamar Jackson, he wasn't deemed pro ready, but he was pro ready. Even then you look at Josh Rosen, not a great athlete, deemed pro ready, not pro ready.
Yeah, because you're gonna miss reads, you're gonna miss some things, and you're gonna do some dumb stuff as a rookie and second year quarterback. That's just inevitable. But we talked about it a minute ago on my pod when you were with me, like with DeShaun and how he's able to take plays that are dead or take a missed read and make it a positive. Like that you're spot on. Josh Allen got better because he was given time, because he was able to like work through his struggles as a passer, because his legs were such a net
Mhm.
positive that it gave them a chance to score points and keep drives going. When if he was a dead leg quarterback, like they would not have been able to keep themselves afloat. So
You have to
I'm
be
I'm
able
with
to
that train of thought.
you have to be able to keep yourself on the field right
Yes.
early on in order to get better as a quarterback. And I think the guys who can keep themselves on the field, look, there's no more universal skill in football than making somebody not be able to tackle you, right? Like that's
Agreed.
the most universal translatable skill in football. Let's talk about DeShaun Watson. Um, when it comes to seeing him in camp and what your expectations are of him in camp, like what do you expect it to look like and what do you expect us to be saying during camp to feel good about where Deshaun Watson is at to start the season, as far as, you know, looking like he's back from that 700-day layoff, looking like he's shaking off all the rust and looking like the offense, like what do you feel like you have to see? Because it's going to be limited where we're going to see just period. And then even in the preseason, I don't even know if he plays in the preseason that much. So like, what do you think that looks like in order for you to feel comfortable?
Well, I think I would imagine you'd agree with me on this. Coming out of camp, everything, mini camp and OTAs, it was just like glowingly positive reviews about how he was performing. And we were
Mm-hmm.
only getting glimpses, little videos and stuff like that. So I think what you want is, if you remember, again, not to harp back to days, but our recent memory of like a guy trying to challenge to be a franchise quarterback, you would be like hearing several different takes about how Baker Mayfield was playing. He was playing bad, he was playing good. And like, you want the people there covering it to be saying the same things that you heard out of OTAs and minicamp, which is this guy's lighting it up. Like he was making unbelievable throws, like tight windows, on time, accurate. That's what you want to hear to feel good. Again, is that he's doing those things. So when they put the pads on, continuing to do those things, continuing to hear that the command of the offense is on point, that he's delivering the football accurately, making wow throws. You're getting some of those videos that get you all excited a little bit because you see the tight window stuff, and then on top of that, you want to hear that he's using the athleticism to extend plays and make things happen. Like that's something that we talked about a little bit. Is can he continue to do that? The extension stuff that makes him a special quarterback, making plays last longer than they should, and then getting the offensive linemen and the wide receivers to get on the same page with him. So, what you want to hear is universal, not somebody being like, Watson wasn't very good the first 2 days. You want to hear universal praise. That's what you want to hear. And like we were hearing coming out of minicamp and training camp, that's the best quarterbacking we've ever seen up here, like from people. So that's what you want to continue to hear, in my opinion.
Yeah, it's gonna be interesting to see how we deal with this whole, like with Deshaun Watson and how he plays, what that's gonna look like. Because I think it's clear that he personally feels a lot more comfortable now. I mean, like obviously not having to deal with going to New York every other day or flying back to Houston. He could just be here, play football. I think that's gonna be very important. Real quick before I get you off of here, who is gonna be, in your mind, the number one beneficiary, or if you want to do like top three beneficiaries of Deshaun Watson getting comfortable in this offense?
Well, Elijah Moore stands out because he was dealing with absolute nonsense in New York. We all know that. We've seen the splits when he just got away from Zach Wilson, but you forget when he got away from Zach Wilson, he was catching the footballs from Joe Flacco and old boy down there in Miami. Now I can't think of his name off the top of my head. My brain
You're
is
talking about
off this morning.
Super Bowl MVP Joe
Yeah,
Flacco.
Joe Flacco, and I can't think of the name of the other guy. Mike David. I can't think of his name. Anyway, he's down in Miami
Mike
now.
White.
Mike White. There it is. See, I'm
There you
off.
go.
So if you weren't here, I'd be terrible. But yeah, I think that like getting him a chance to work with a quarterback who's got the right arm strength, the right ability to be on time, but also create some stuff out of chaos. To me, smells like a guy like Elijah Moore can really thrive with that. Just getting unstructured, being where he's supposed to be, when he's supposed to be, the space he creates. I think he's got a chance. Watson with the tight end has been good everywhere he's been, and he's made bad tight ends look good. So Njoku, there's no excuse for him not to be really good. Like put up a good number of. Listen, his last 2 years of the Texans, we're like, man, another touchdown for Jordan Akins, who again he's in
Or
Cleveland now. Darren
was this
Fells,
the guy?
what's
Yeah,
going
Darren
on?
Fells.
Why are these guys have got 7-8 touchdowns in a year? So Watson likes to use those guys, man. So he's a seam shot thrower. Like he should be able to get those guys the football in space. And there's no excuse for David not to have a great year. He had a pretty strong top 10 tight end year last year. He should have another really good one and push toward top 5 in my opinion. I know. I had just talked about a chance that he steps back, but I think he's got a chance to really push it up to a whole new level, especially with the history of what Watson's done. And then I think that you're looking at who else could benefit from this. If you can get your offensive linemen to play more of that, like I mentioned earlier, play more of like a defense. You're almost playing defense. You're just kind of trying to mirror your guy, stay in front of him. As a lineman, you can't see what the quarterback's doing. Your back's to him. But the defensive guys will always tell you with their eyes where the quarterback's going. So you have to stay with your man and be athletic enough to mirror him and move and get and shift your body and kind of shield up. You're a defensive player, but then you're almost setting screens, right? So Watson's pushing out left. You got to be able to just get your body in the way. And I think when I look at offensive linemen with the athleticism to do that, I continue to think Jedrick Wills can be really good with him as a left tackle. So maybe I'm putting too much money in the bag here with him at left tackle, trying to get it figured out. But I think if he gets more experience with Watson and understands what he's supposed to do, and that we're not asking you to be crazy efficient here, man. We're just asking you to shield. What I'm saying is Jed isn't overly physical. I think we could agree about that at this point. He's not a physical. He's more of a finesse tackle. And when you play a finesse brand of football with Watson, you can be really effective because he can use you as a human shield to sort of set up blockers and create ways to escape and create those plays that we're talking about. So I would say Jed has a chance to take his game to a whole new level. The RPO stuff, where RPOs are not drive blocking schemes. They are just get your body in the right place to be there if they do hand it off and be there to just sort of shield your guy without breaking that 2-yard halo. He's got a chance to be really efficient this year, more than he's been in his career. And I think the schematic stuff that they're moving to benefits him more than just about anything he's been involved with.
That being said, this is a real quick question, last one. If you've mentioned the athleticism at tackle, especially needing to be up there, right? If Jack Conklin gets hurt and DeJuan Jones steps in there and plays well, do you go back to Jack?
Probably not. If DeJuan plays really well, no. I mean, I think that the Browns drafted DeJuan Jones knowing the risk, but knowing that the highest upside here is that he's your long-term right tackle and Jed is your long-term left tackle. Like that would be the best outcome for the Cleveland Browns, because then you can work on, Jack Conklin's your injury substitute guy, and then Conklin is probably gone at the end of the year with the structure of contracts and the way you can move it. So I don't think they would be hard pressed if you get really quality play from DeJuan Jones. That's the guy. He was a top 40 graded talent, and they're trying to get him. And I think the longer DeJuan Jones sits on the bench, the worse is for him. That's my opinion.
Yeah, that's how I worry about that.
You want him engaged early, in my opinion. So that would not be not wishing injury on anybody or not forcing him out on the field, but getting him out there, I think it would ultimately be a good thing for him. So I hope he does get a chance to play some in his rookie year.
It'll be interesting. But thank you, Jake, for coming on. Make sure you check out Jake at the OBR. Check out his podcast. It's available on Spotify, anywhere where podcasts are available. Jake, thank you for coming on. Anything else you want to say before I head out?
Not a thing, man. Keep doing your thing. Keep rocking it. I'm a big fan. Appreciate you having me.
All right, man. Y'all have a great day. Have a good night.